Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. Well, it was a big day of releases for Dragalia Lost with High Mercury coming out, with Chapter 8 of the campaign coming out, and with this new showcase, Visions of Amity also coming out. I am going to do a formal review of this showcase just as a bit of housekeeping. The things you should know for now are that Maribel and Strabog, the 4-star dragon, have been given a raid up, and of course that you still can get worm prints on this showcase. None of them are on focus, but they will still appear. They will go away on the 25th, that's when they'll leave the summoning pool, and that is when we're getting our fake crossover, so I think for most of you, you probably want to wait until the end of this showcase to make a decision, and for many of you, you'll probably want to save for that event. Maybe it'll include a showcase that's associated with Fae, maybe not. There's always the possibility that those are free units and it's some other type of event or crossover, but we won't know that right away, so it is a good time to wait and probably not to summon. Even though Silas is cool, Pazuzu's cool, that is my advice as far as that, but I will make that review video just so we can talk about builds for Silas and builds for Yue. The other bit of housekeeping I want to point out is with respect to High Mercury. Since if you were like me, you probably went into this treasure trade right away and went ahead and crafted yourself this Max Unbound Queen of the Blue Seas. Now obviously that's not in here since I already got it and redeemed it. This is the basic version. As it turns out, High Mercury is a very different fight than the other two High Dragon trials. The only bit of unavoidable damage is in the opening blast, and the amount of damage dealt is lower than what we would have expected. It's lower than what we face in High Brunhilde, and it's a lot easier to meet that HP check while running offensive worm prints. And you're going to want offensive worm prints for that fight because High Mercury is extremely tanky. She has over 2 million HP, and for reference, this is double what High Brunhilde had. So I love the fight, I've had a lot of fun playing it, haven't gotten my first clear yet with Eleonora, but I've made some significant progress this past day, and it's been a lot of fun playing with all of you on the Discord, trying different strategies out. The thing I'm liking lately is a no healer run. That is actually not too hard to do because, like I said, the only unavoidable damage is that opening blast. So it is more of a DPS check this time around than an HP check, and once I'm able to get a clear, I will bring you that and talk more about that fight. Other than that, I am here today. The topic of this video is to talk about the new chapter, Chapter 8. So I'll give you a little bit of spoiler-free discussion in case you haven't beaten this chapter yet, and then we'll get into the actual story itself, and I'll show off one of the maps that I think is a good example of what I liked in this chapter. So the spoiler-free discussion is, cool chapter. I like that we are meeting more of Yuden's siblings. We knew that from the preview. I like the setting. I like a lot of the visual presentation in this chapter. It does a nice thing like with Chapter 7 and with Chapter 6, where we actually get a mix of enemies. In this case, we get flame and shadow enemies in some of these maps. And there is a good amount of exposition on the side. There is a good amount of lore that's dropped in this chapter. So those are some of the positives. It was a little bit on the short side, and there were some things plot-wise that I felt were a little bit hamstrung or a little bit pushed together, and it didn't seem to fit super well to me. The last thing I'll say is, I really encourage you to beat this chapter because there is a very nice reward. If you haven't yet, this is a great time to catch up on the story. Go ahead and finish Chapter 7, you unlock Void Battles for completing that, and go ahead and finish this chapter as you unlock something very cool for finishing it as well. So that is going to do it for the spoiler-free discussion. Now I'll get into the details of the chapter itself. So overall, I liked the interaction between Alex and Alisanne. I thought it was cool that we got to see that resolved here. And since last chapter focused on Ronzel and then we got Gala Ronzel, this chapter makes me think we'll probably get Gala Alisanne next. We got to see a really cute vignette of Alisanne as a child and Alex as a child. We explored their relationship and learned a lot about the Ilian Church. All of those, I think, were positives. I think they were pretty well handled, but to me, that could have been its own side story and didn't really need to involve Leonidas. That's the thing I felt like was kind of shoved together, and Leonidas and the entire city that we were visiting really struck me as super power hungry. It really was kind of unrealistic to me, and I think that's kind of an unfair criticism for a fantasy game, but it just seemed way over the top compared to Yuden's other siblings that we've met, Valix or Emil, who is power hungry, but he's kind of groveling. Leonidas just seems cruel, and I didn't really like that about him. It didn't seem like somebody that would have been the son of Aurelius from what we know about Aurelius. So I guess he's meant to be disliked because he is a villain, and one word that is used a ton in this chapter is Morsayati. We get so much lore about Morsayati, the other, basically this plan to essentially revive him using what I can only call Horcruxes, or little pieces of him throughout the world, to try to make him whole and bring his body back, since right now the demon is inhabiting Zethia in New Sol, Alberia. So that's kind of the situation as far as this chapter. We get some cool detail about Mars as well, and the alchemical augmentation that Leonidas is willing to do to usher in this new age where man rules over dragons. It is a very interesting concept. I like that. I think we get from both him and Ferris some interesting use of technology. We know that Dragalia Lost is a world that is post-apocalyptic. We know that there was a war between humans and dragons back during the time of Ilia, back during the time of the Great Worm Elysium, where they came together and stopped Morsayati once. There was advanced technology that drained the mana that dragons rely upon as their natural life force. So there's this rich world history in Alberia, in Dragalia Lost, and I love that we're getting some more exposition of that. That part was really cool to me, but some of the smaller details kind of threw me off. I will say I was a fan of the role Mim played. I thought that was fun. I thought that it was actually really cute how she took on Mars and saved the crew. She got a moment to shine. We actually got to see her transform into Hilda, which is awesome because we actually get some canonical representation of the High Dragons and what it means to be a High Dragon, to protect the ones you care about. I thought it was really cool that we got that. The other thing I loved was the side story, this EX chapter, where we heard about what's going on with Leaf in the capital. He is going to make a move. I'm guessing we're going to find him next chapter when we go to Shell's party. That is also awesome. Leaf is a fan favorite character, and the way that he laid out his plans to us, I thought he sounded so cool, and I thought he had everything under control. He had a plan to depose the ruler, the other, who is on the throne right now. So all of those things were positives to me. The one moment I thought was kind of ridiculous was at the end of the chapter when instead of Leonidas, we fight against Manticore. And this was almost like a Martha Batman v Superman moment that just totally took me out of the game, where for some reason this Manticore that has just been a nameless generic enemy that we've fought so many times if you've been playing since the beginning of the game, this guy has shown up as a boss in so many events with reskins, but suddenly he is our foe that we're supposed to be afraid of? That just took me a little bit out of the story, unfortunately, but it's similar to last chapter where we fought against the Storm Sentinel instead of actually fighting against Ferris. And with both Chapter 7 and Chapter 8, that is one thing I do find to be a little bit of a bummer. We really don't get to fight against Yuden's brothers. We only see them in cutscenes. We don't get to battle Ferris, we don't get to battle Leonidas, and the reason I was hoping that we would is because the game already set a precedent for that in Chapter 6, where we fought against Valix. So on the positive side, like I said, I do like the maps, so I'm going to show you one of the maps that I really enjoyed. We'll bring a healer along just in case, and I'm going to give you a little tour with my Pietro. I do think that if you are playing through this game in sequence, let's say you're newer to the game or you waited to do the story all at once, then I think there is a ton of appeal to how the difficulty level unfolds. As for me, it turned out the way I was able to do this was pretty much just auto battle on ×2 speed, and I would occasionally hit the heal button since my Pietro doesn't have burn res, and running through these stages you do get burned by hazards, but I just love the red and purplish shadowy mix, the set pieces like this big skull here, this big skeleton of a dragon or a dinosaur, some type of lizard. I think they did a very good job with the level design this time, and there's multiple threats. There's hazards. These bones that fall down inflict stun. These enemies can burn you if they're flame. I believe the shadow may poison you or curse you. Let's see, let's take a hit and see what happens to us. Looks like we are poisoned. It's just a very cool combination on this map, and it gives me hope for longer maps in Dragalia Lost. I would love it if the game is somehow ever able to incorporate more puzzle-solving elements, and I know that longer maps aren't ideal for co-op, but for single-player only content, I think there is a lot of potential with them, like a gauntlet of maps you face through. Maybe each new room you have to bring a new set of adventurers to help you. But yeah, I just wanted to showcase this and say, overall, pretty happy with the story. Nice that we finally got a new chapter. That reward at the end of getting Alex, so cool. I never thought we would get another unit. And it actually gives me a lot of hope that we'll get a normal variant of Cerise in addition to her Gala variant. So maybe in the chapter that comes out that focuses on Luca, much like how this chapter focused on Elisanne, maybe in that chapter we'll actually get a normal version of Cerise. That would be super cool and make me feel a lot better about my Gala situation for sure. Of course, that is unknown. Next chapter, we're going to go to some type of party hosted by Shell. That should be very interesting. I'm curious to see what that's like, what her dragon is. So far, we've met Thor, who is Valix's dragon, and now we met Mars. And so we're going to find out what her dragon is or what her whole deal is. That should be quite cool to see. I'm very much looking forward to it. Hopefully it doesn't take quite as long this time around. It looks like we're missing some enemies somewhere, but oh, they're all the way back at the beginning of the map. So I'm going to head back and take care of them. That's going to do it for this video, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear what you thought of Chapter 8 in the comments below, as well as how you're enjoying the rest of the update that's taking place. Otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.